Hello and welcome to Narayana IAS Academy. As part of our weekly current affairs revision, we will delve into 6 most significant topics from The Hindu and Indian Express. Let's thoroughly examine each topic one by one, ensuring that we cover all essential details to keep you well informed and prepared. Let's start with the first topic.
It's talking about a scheme called Digital Bharat Nidhi. Earlier, government has a scheme called as USOF, Universal Service Obligation Fund, and the aim was to improve rural telecom connectivity. Telecom connectivity in rural areas, we have to improve that because in the previous videos also, we have talked about a term called digital literacy. Today, we are living in the world of fourth industrial revolution, AI, artificial intelligence, big data. We are talking about so many things. So we can leverage these things more if you have telecom connectivity, if you have broadband services and all those things. To cater to that, you had USOF, Universal Service Obligation Fund. But that scheme had its own share of issues. So government is bringing something known as Digital Bharat Nidhi now. And again, questions on different kind of schemes like Unnat Bharat Abhiyan has been asked in the past. So they can ask you directly a question on Digital Bharat Nidhi. So now here, pay attention to the keywords. We don't need to, or you don't need to mug up everything given on each particular slide, but the keywords are important. Government has introduced a Digital Bharat Nidhi as a new initiative to enhance telecom connectivity in rural areas. But it's not like it is only confined to rural areas. There are some underserved portions of urban area also where there is issue of telecom connectivity. But it is primarily concerned with enhancing telecom connectivity in rural areas. And it will be replacing USOF, Universal Service Obligation Fund. Department of Telecommunication and the Ministry of Communication released draft rules. Again, we are not concerned with those draft rules per se, but we have to understand that if Digital Bharat Nidhi is coming, which particular scheme it is replacing. Comprehensive fund, it is just like Universal Service Obligation Fund has money which was supposed to be used to enhance telecom connectivity in rural areas. Same will apply to Digital Bharat Nidhi. And plus, the major incentive here is we have to see that the funds are properly implemented or properly used rather, because in the case of USOF, the major criticism was the funds were not utilized to the fullest extent rather. So DBN will replace USOF, which was funded by a 5% universal service levy on the adjusted gross revenue of telecom operators like Airtel, Jio, etc. So DBN will have a broader scope, including funding for research and development, pilot projects, and consultancy assistance. So we are trying to go broader, like whatever lasunas USOF had rather, we are trying to rectify it via Digital Bharat Nidhi. So now let's talk about Universal Service Obligation Fund, which will be replaced by Digital Bharat Nidhi. When was it established? The year is important, 2003. What was the function? To fund the expansion of telecom networks in areas where private companies were reluctant to invest, because private company has a major motive of profit. But when you have government, like let's say BSNL is there. So profit is not the only motive of BSNL. So that's why expansion of telecom network was taken by the government, because private companies were not coming forward. USOF has been criticized for its underutilization and inefficiency in meeting its objective. So there are different data which you can use to substantiate why USOF has been replaced. So between this particular 5-year, 2017 to 2022, government collected more than 41,000 crore through USOF, of which only 30,000 crore was utilized. Around 10 to 11,000 crore was underutilized. And that is the point here, that why these money were not utilized to the fullest extent. This inefficiency led to significant funds remaining unspent, which was particularly notable in the BharatNet project aimed at providing fiber connectivity to villages. And all these things, when this is happening, digital literacy is getting impacted. Rural areas, they are not getting the same benefit as urban areas. There was a question asked by UPSC in mains related to Pura, providing urban amenities to rural areas. And in a way, Digital Bharat Nidhi and this Universal Service Obligation Fund is trying to implement the objectives of Pura. Now, there's a question for you. Providing urban amenities to rural areas, Pura was conceptualized by whom? If you know this, you can post it in the comment section. Telecom sector in India. It ranks as the second largest globally. India's telecom industry is a huge industry. Subscriber base of 1.179 billion. We have a huge population. Fourth largest sector in terms of FDI. accounting for 6% of total FDI inflow. So the prospect is huge, the potential is huge when we are talking about telecom sector per se. So let's focus on this particular point. The country has a tele density of 84.69%, indicating the number of telephones per 100 people. So around 85 telephones per 100 people. But we have to be careful here. Maybe one people has multiple phones also, because we have that scenario right now. So it doesn't mean that only 15 people does not have phone. So you have to be careful when you are looking at these kind of data. Average monthly data consumption per wireless data has surged to 17.36 GB from 61.66 MB. This is a good figure also and a bad figure also. Good figure if you're utilizing it properly. Let's say you're using Neptel lectures, watching different lectures, learning stuff, then it's a good thing. But if you're using it for just scrolling down YouTube reels and all those things, then this data is not very good. So, but again, we are using more and more of these ICT tools, which is actually a good thing, and we have to keep going forward. And telecom sector will play a crucial role in that regard.
Students, the title of the next topic is what is cognitive test. Now, in this article, we'll understand cognitive test and cognitive dissonance, which is a part of ethics GS paper 4, right? Now, a previous question asked in the year 2022. What was the question? The question was write short notes on the following in 30 words each. One is constitutional moralities. These are some key terms. Now, similarly, UPSC can also ask to write a short note on cognitive dissonance. As a reason, you need to understand this concept of cognition. Now, you might read this article and you might wonder if this can be important from the exam's perspective. But if you read in the GS4 syllabus, there are few concepts given in the ethics subject. That's the reason it is important to understand the key words in the article. The context, what is the context? There have been calls that the president of USA should take a cognitive test so as to understand his mental functioning. So what is a cognitive test? It is nothing but it is a tool to measure the mental functions and capabilities, right? Now this tool is designed to evaluate different aspects of cognitive functioning, different aspects of your understanding or your ability to perceive things. So the test is designed to evaluate which different aspects? One, your thinking, your learning, your memory, your judgment, your language. So this is a tool to understand the mental functions and capability. If your mind is capable of thinking, learning, taking a judgment, language, etc. Now, this test is recommended for individuals who are experiencing memory problems, difficulty focusing, poor judgment, or who feel their cognitive functioning are not as sharp as it should be. Now, going through this test will help understand one, if he is suffering from cognitive impairment, dementia, or pseudo-dementia. What is cognitive impairment? Where individuals experience difficulties with memory, learning, concentration, decision making. What is dementia? Decline in cognitive function, which means when you have dementia, it affects your memory, thinking, behavior. And then what is pseudo-dementia? It is similar like dementia, but here memory problems but these symptoms are actually caused by underlying psychiatric disorder. That is, this is the consequence of some psychological disorder like depression. I hope you understood what is cognitive test. It is a tool to measure your mental function and capability. Now, these tests are recommended for individuals, elderly, children, people with neurological conditions, mental health, job applicants, employees, medical patients, legal or forensic experts as well, right? Now, students, there's a concept in GS Ethics paper 4, which is cognitive dissonance. Now, what is cognitive dissonance? It is a psychological phenomena involving mental discomfort. Why? So, you experience mental discomfort. Why? Because of conflicting behaviors or beliefs. For example, I know that smoking is harmful. This is a belief that smoking is harmful. Despite the fact that I know smoking is harmful, I am smoking. So here I am actually doing an action which is against or opposite to my belief. This is known as cognitive dissonance. Or let's say, for example, I want to save money. Why? Because I want to, let's say, buy a house. Or let's say I want to get the treatment done of my parents. Now, when I have money, what I'm doing is I'm actually spending money. Let's say I'm booking a room in a 5-star hotel. Now here I need to save money, but actually what I'm doing is I'm actually spending money recklessly, right? Which means this is actually going against my belief, which is known as cognitive dissonance. The focus of cognitive dissonance is the mental conflict between beliefs, values or attitudes. I hope you understood what is cognitive dissonance.
Out is Putin accepts Modi's request in order to release the Indian military recruits. So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about the recent visiting of the Indian Prime Minister to Moscow in the backdrop of India-Russia annual summit that has actually been going on since 2000. And here for the prelims as well as the mains examination, what is more important is to discuss about India-Russia ties. Okay. So this particular article will be discussing about India-Russia relationship as it is a part of international relations, and we can actually map this particular topic to GS paper 2 for the mains examination and the effect of policies and politics of developed and developing countries on India's interest. Okay. So moving forward, so there has been actually a previous year question asked in the mains examination in 2020 on the Indo-US defense deal. So similarly, they have actually asked how it actually differs with respect to that of Indo-Russian defense deal and what is the significance. So here, the relationship that India actually shares with the immediate neighbors, the extended neighbors and other bilateral ties with countries like US, Russia, etc. are very, very important for your mains examination. Now, let us understand what is this particular article discussing about. Okay, so the Indian Prime Minister had visited Moscow for the India-Russia annual summit, which has actually been ongoing since the year 2000. Now, let us understand the key outcomes of this particular visit. The first one, there has been economic targets where India and Russia had actually set a target of achieving around $100 billion in bilateral trade by 2030. That is, trade should actually hit around $100 billion by 2030. Next one, Modi had actually requested the Russian president in order to release the Indians in the Russian military. That is, Russia promised to discharge the Indians who were misled into joining the army, and this issue was actually raised by our Prime Minister during his talks. Next one, order of St. Andrew the Apostle Award. That is, the Prime Minister actually was officially conferred with Russia's highest civilian award, that is nothing but the Order of St. Andrew the Apostle, by the President Vladimir Putin for his exceptional services in promoting bilateral trade between the two countries. The next one, the Prime Minister had announced the opening of 2 new Indian consulates in the Russian cities of Kazan as well as Yekaterinburg. Okay. Moving forward, there will actually be energy sector cooperation where Russia is exploring a long-term oil deal with that of India. And next one, strategic partnership. That is, the Prime Minister had described Russia as India's all-weather friend and praised the Russian president's leadership in strengthening the bilateral ties. Now, let us quickly run through the kind of relationship and the key areas of cooperation that both India and Russia actually share that can be asked in your exam as well. So, there is bilateral importance, that is, Russia actually holds a crucial position in India's foreign policy as a key bilateral partner. Next one, there has been a long-standing friendship between India and Russia where India regards Russia as a long-standing and time-tested ally that has significantly contributed to its economic development as well as security. The next one, foundation of the partnership, it is actually, based on mutual interest in multilateralism, global peace and prosperity, and the entire relationship is actually built on 4 factors. One is mutual trust. The next one, there is mutual respect for each other's territorial integrity and core national interests. Next one is alignment on key international as well as regional issues concerning both war as well as peace. Now, moving forward, let us see what are the major areas of cooperation between the two nations. The first one is defense and security cooperation. So, as we know, Russia is a major supplier of defense items to the Indian armed forces, and both the nations are in joint research and development as well as in the production of advanced defense items. And as per the SIPRI International Arms Transfers 2024 report, Russia continues to be India's largest arms supplier, and also In 2018, if you see, India has actually signed a 5 billion deal with Russia in order to buy 5 units of S-400 air defense missile systems. Again, very, very important. And both the sides actually conduct the tri-services exercise named as Indra. This is also very, very important. Next one, if you see the trade and economic cooperation, the bilateral trade between both the countries touched 25 billion in 2022. Next one, if you see bilateral investments also have actually reached around $30 billion in 2018. Next, if you see, there have been also multilateral cooperations. That is, Russia actually supports India's bid for a permanent seat in the UNSC and membership of the NST, that is a nuclear supply group. And also, both the sides have an active engagement at the SCO as well as the BRICS, that is international multilateral organizations. These are as well as in the connectivity projects like the INSTC, that is the International North-South Transport Corridor. Here, this is also important as you have to know the extent, the stretch from where to where it is, what are the advantages economically that it will actually give to India, etc. Next one, other areas of cooperation. First one, in terms of nuclear energy, Russia is an important partner for India in the area of peaceful use of nuclear energy. And also, if you see the KKNTP, that is the Kudamkulam nuclear power plant is being built in India, and both India and Russia are implementing the Rupur nuclear power project in Bangladesh. And then if you see, in terms of space cooperation, Russia has supported India's space program since its early days, and the Soviet Union had actually launched India's first unmanned satellite Aryabhat in 1975. And also today, if you see, Russia is supporting India's first manned space mission, that is the Gaganyaan mission. And next one, in terms of science and technology, India and Russia's relationship extends to the field of basic sciences as well, including the Russian-Indian network, that is the RIN of universities, Arctic as well as the Antarctic research, etc. Now let us look into few of the challenges that these both countries actually face with respect to that of the relationship they share. First one, economic challenges. Issue is that India is actually facing a very high trade deficit. That is, there is a high trade deficit between India and Russia. The factors include Russia's regulatory impediments, the phytosanitary standards that they have actually put in place, and the non-tariff barriers. This actually have worsened the situation. The next one, that is regional tension, because Russia has close ties with that of India's regional adversary like both China as well as Pakistan. This is one of the problems. The causes, that is the impact is it causes discomfort in the India-Russia relationship. And also in terms of defense, India's defense modernization and diversification efforts is also one of the issue. The impact is this reduces dependence on the Russian defense, because when India is actually trying to indigenize, the manufacturing of weapons and other things, it is reducing the dependence on the Russian defense supplies, potentially straining the defense ties between both the sides. Next, there is also a changing world order where, it is like between the major powers like US versus Russia. Few countries are sidelining with the US. Since India is also a democratic country, it is actually sidelining with the principles of the United States as against Russia, where the inclination is towards China. So, there is shift towards a bipolar world due to the US-China rivalry. And also, impact is that conflicts with India, Russia's vision of a multipolar world, leading to a divergence in the strategic interest. The next one, expanding geostrategic interest, is that India is actually expanding its interest beyond the Indian Ocean region and South Asia. And finally, with respect to that of natural inclination to that of the West, that is India's democratic setup as well as the affinity towards the West, particularly that of the USA and major European nations, is actually of late increasing. Okay, this poses a challenge to the India-Russia relationship.
So the first article is about the Supreme Court's judgment on Muslim women's right to get maintenance. This article is important, and we need to study section 125 of CRPC and the earlier Supreme Court's judgment related to the same issue. You can relate it with the syllabus of GS paper 2 social justice. We can first understand one previous year questions so that we can get an idea about what kind of questions can be asked in the paper. One question is, discuss the possible factors that inhibit India from enacting for its citizens a uniform civil code as provided for in the Directive Principles of State Policy. Let's first discuss the article. You'll get an idea about writing answers to these questions. The article, the context of the article says that there is a couple from Telangana who went to Telangana High Court and then went to Supreme Court regarding the issue of maintenance. Here the Supreme Court has clearly said that the women should get maintenance under section 125 of the CRPC, Code of Criminal Procedure. But the first question is, what is maintenance? You can look at any family in which there is one person who is dependent and there is one person who is independent. Independent means the person is earning money, the person is capable of living his life on his own. But there are some individuals whom I am saying they are dependent. So the responsibility of these individuals lies on this independent person. Responsibility includes the food expenses, basic living standards, everything will be taken care of by this independent person. Now, in case there is a divorce among these two individuals. So after the divorce, this independent person may say, I'll not pay for your food, I'll not pay for your any kind of expense. In that case, we are saying there should be some security or some insurance provided to these dependent individuals. Now, these dependent individuals could be the wife of that person, could be children, or maybe his or her parents. In that case, whatever amount this independent person should pay to these dependent persons even after divorce is called as maintenance amount. Now, if you look at Indian laws, the CRPC section 125 says that a person after divorce will have to pay his wife the some particular amount that will be decided with the help of the district magistrate, but that amount has to be paid. That means the maintenance has to be paid. Now, what happened in this case is that the women went to Supreme Court saying that under this act I should get maintenance, but my husband is refusing to pay me that amount. Now, what husband is saying, he says, this section 125, I am not liable to pay amount through this act. Rather, I have another act called Muslim Women Protection of Rights on Divorce Act 1986, and I will pay the amount according to this act. And he says that I've already paid the amount. Now, what is this act? We need to understand how this act came into picture. You look at Indian legal system. There is one legal system, one law called criminal law and other one called as civil law. Criminal law is same for all individuals living in India. But civil laws are not same. We still do not have uniform civil code. So if you look at the personal laws, such as any law which includes marriage, divorce, inheritance, maintenance, everything is included in the personal law. And these personal laws are not same for all individuals in India. Rather, Hindus will have different law, Muslims will have different law, other community will have different law altogether. In that case, if we specifically talk about Muslim women, what we observe is that they are getting the maintenance amount but only through their personal law, Muslim personal law. And that law says that there should be maintenance amount to be provided to the Muslim women, but only for the period of iddat. Now, what is this period of iddat? You can look at any Muslim family, any Muslim couple, if they get divorced. In that case, there is a time period of 3 months in which the women cannot marry another guy. She will have to wait for 3 months. It is said that for the emotional adjustment after divorce requires some cooling off period. And also, it is very important to see if the lady can get pregnant. In case she gets pregnant, we can know who is the father of that child. So for that thing, this period of iddat has been mentioned under the personal laws of Muslims. So what it says is that husband is obliged to pay the maintenance amount to this Muslim women only for this 3-month period. And after that, the woman will have to take care of herself on her own. He will not be responsible for anything. Now, this was the earlier case. But what happened is that after a few years, that is especially in 1985, there's a landmark case called Shah Bano case. In this case, the women argued that I am an old lady. I have given entire life to my husband and now suddenly he has left me. Where should I go? In that case, Supreme Court said that you will be provided with the maintenance even after the iddat period, and that will not be under the personal law, rather that will be under section 125 of the CRPC. Now, please understand the difference. that section 125 of CRPC, it's a secular law. That means it is applicable to all women irrespective of their religion. But personal law is very much religion specific. Now what happened is that in 1985, Supreme Court gave that judgment. But in 1986, that is the next year itself, the government of that time, Rajiv Gandhi government, came up with an act. And this is the act, Muslim Women Protection of Rights on Divorce Act 1986. This act actually reversed this phenomena and clearly mentioned that the Muslim husband will pay maintenance about only for the iddat period and not beyond that. And this caused a big controversy. Now this husband from Telangana is saying that because I have this act, I'll only pay the amount for 3 months and I'll not pay the amount after this. But it is not about this one case only. There are many cases. There is an evolution of cases. Firstly, we can see 2001 Daniel Latifi case. In this case, Supreme Court says that the 1986 Act, which was brought by Rajiv Gandhi government, this act is good. This act is okay. And for the iddat period, the Muslim husband will provide the amount. But the court said that we are extending the right of Muslim women to get the maintenance till she gets remarried. That means we may say iddat period is for 3 months only. But in case she doesn't get married in 3 months, gets married after 6 months or 7 months, so till that time husband will have to pay the maintenance amount, and that will be under the section 125 of CRPC. Because there are now 2 acts and there is some contradiction. So we are referring to it again and again. In 2009, there is a case Shabana Bano versus Imran Khan, in which the court again said that even after the expiry of iddat period, we will provide the maintenance. In 2019, Patna High Court said that a woman will have choice that she may go for section 125 of CRPC or she may give call for section 1986 Act. So now we have come to 2024, in which this Telangana couple has went to Supreme Court, and now Supreme Court has concluded and gave this final conclusion saying that a woman will have a choice, and we will look at the woman and see whether she is independent or not. If a woman is financially independent, she can take care of herself. In that case, she should apply for the maintenance only under 1986 Act. So what will happen? She will get maintenance only for 3 months. And in case there is a family in which the woman is not capable of earning, not financially independent, she should apply under section 125 of CRPC. Supreme Court clearly says that even if we have 2 contradictory laws, we will find some harmony among these laws. And we will look at the core objective of the Constitution. If you look at Article 15, Clause 3, it says that we have to ensure life of dignity for women at all stages of their life. So to ensure dignity of a woman, we'll have to provide maintenance to her. So even if there are contradictions, we will solve the contradiction. And court has actually focused on the secular nature of Indian laws, because there is this CRPC section which is applicable to every woman. It includes Muslim women, also Hindu women. So laws are secular in nature and they are applicable to everyone. Also, court has focused on the social justice, which is one of the core philosophy of Indian Constitution. Whatever laws we bring, the objective has to be very clear. The objective is to provide social justice to these women. So that's why we can consider this article as important.
Students, the title of the next topic is Heat Dome. Now, in this article, we'll understand what is heat dome and the role of climate change. You can match this under GS paper. A PYQ asked in the year 2020. Now, this was a question asked on the jet streams and cyclones. So, please go to the question and try to understand the type of question UPSC might ask. What is the context? The context is that the western part of United States of America is reeling under severe heat wave. This is known by the phenomena of heat dome, because of which 75 million people have been affected. Let us know more about what is heat dome. Now, this is a meteorological phenomenon. this heat dome is characterized by high pressure system in the atmosphere that traps warm air over a region for an extended period. So what is happening is, let's say for example, this is the ground surface. This is the ground surface, and now at the above or at an elevated position, the high pressure system sets in or kicks in. Now at the lower level, because of the hot air rises. And as the hot air is rising, and when it reaches till this position, because of the high pressure system created over a region for an extended period, the rising air actually is trapped because of this high pressure system. And that's the reason the region gets warm. So this is nothing but the high pressure system is created because of, we'll understand the reason behind the heat wave, but here the air that is rising from the ground level is trapped because of the high pressure system. So the high pressure system acts like a lid on a pot. It prevents the warm air from rising. It actually is trapping and making the region more hot. Now this trapped warmth, it leads to clear skies and increased sunlight. Because of the clear skies, more sun rays are penetrating, making the region more hot or warm. This is known as heat dome. So here you can see with the help of a diagram, you can understand what exactly is heat dome. Now, what is the role of the jet stream? Now students, the formation of heat dome is actually linked to the behavior of jet streams. What is jet stream? They are fast moving air current high in the atmosphere. They are fast moving air current which are in this zigzag format or a wave format. It typically follows a wave-like pattern moving from north to south and back then. So it's north to south and back then, right? Now when these waves become larger, so like let's say these are the normal waves. Now when these waves become larger and elongated, actually they can slow down and become stationary. So jet streams are moving, but when the waves become larger and elongated, it actually becomes stationed at one place, leading to the generation or establishment of high pressure system. And this high pressure system will trap the warm air coming from the surface and it will make the region more hot. This is known as heat dome, and jet stream is the reason for heat dome. That's it. This is about the article. I hope students you understood the article.
The next article that we'll be discussing about is in Kejriwal Bail lends on ED's power to arrest. Okay, so in this particular article, we'll be discussing about the Supreme Court granting interim bail to Mr. Arvind Kejriwal in a case that has actually been brought up by the Enforcement Directorate in the alleged Delhi excise policy scam. Okay, so in this particular article, what is important for us to understand from the exam perspective is to understand what is this Enforcement Directorate, what are the provisions that have been given for the Enforcement Directorate to make an arrest under the PMLA Act. For that, you need to understand what is this PMLA Act, that is Prevention of Money Laundering Act, for which you need to know what is money laundering, and also we need to know the concept of interim bail. Okay. So here in this particular article, we will be discussing about the Enforcement Directorate as well as the PMLA Act, and this is actually important, or it can be mapped to GS paper 2 for the mains examination under separation of powers between various organs, dispute redressal mechanisms and institutions, and also under GS paper 3 money laundering. Okay. So moving forward, there has been a previous year question asked in the year 2013 in the mains examination with respect to that of money laundering. So these topics are very, very important for your mains examination. Now let us understand what this particular article is actually discussing about. So recently, the Supreme Court had actually granted interim bail. What do you mean by interim bail? It is nothing but the bail that is granted temporarily to a person in case a regular bail is actually not been able to be obtained immediately. Okay, so however, you need to understand that this particular term interim bail is actually not explicitly mentioned in the CRPC. Okay, so it is just a temporary bail that is given to a person. So recently, Supreme Court had actually given such a temporary bail to the Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal in the Delhi excise policy case that has been brought about by this Enforcement Directorate, raising significant questions about the Enforcement Directorate's power in order to arrest the under Prevention of Money Laundering Act. So here it is important for us to understand what is this particular institution of Enforcement Directorate and the powers and functions of it. Okay. So the Enforcement Directorate is a specialized financial investigation agency in India. Very important, financial investigation. And it was actually established in 1956 as the enforcement unit under the Department of Economic Affairs. Very important, Department of Economic Affairs, because later it was actually transferred to Department of Revenue. So it was earlier under Department of Economic Affairs under the Ministry of Finance. It was initially set up in order to handle the exchange control law violations under the FERA, that is Foreign Exchange Regulation Act FERA, in 1947. Then if you see, the unit was actually renamed from the Enforcement Unit to Enforcement Directorate in 1957 with branches added in Bombay, Calcutta as well as in Madras. And you can see that in 1960, the administrative control of ED was transferred to the Department of Revenue. As I told you earlier, it was Department of Economic Affairs under Ministry of Finance. Now moving forward, presently if you see, ED actually enforces two primary laws. One is actually FEMA, that is the Foreign Exchange Management Act, which actually facilitates the external trade and the payments that is actually made in order to maintain the foreign exchange market stability. Basically, it actually takes care of all these, external trade and the payments associated to it, so that there is actually a stability in the, market. Next one, if you see, Prevention of Money Laundering Act. This is the second one. So, to prevent the money laundering and to confiscate the property derived from it or involved in money laundering. So, these are the two primary laws it actually enforces. Next one, if you see the headquarters, it is actually headquartered in New Delhi with 5 regional offices as well as 10 zonal offices. And here, officers to this Enforcement Directorate are directly recruited from the other investigation agencies like the IRS, the IPS as well as the IAS. Now moving on, let us actually look into what is the relevance between the PMLA and what is the provision that is provided to the Enforcement Directorate in order to arrest a person, citing that this person has actually been arrested under the provisions of PMLA Act. This is what we'll see. So, under the PMLA, Enforcement Directorate is empowered to arrest individuals who are suspected for money laundering. For that, let us understand what is money laundering. Money laundering is nothing but you are disguising, that is, you have an illegally obtained money, okay, including because of some criminal activities or because of tax evasion, etc. But you show that illegal money as legitimate income through series of complex financial transactions, so that you will actually show that black money as white money, okay. And the aim is to make these illicit funds appear legal and you actually integrate them into the formal, regular functioning economy. So this is what is money laundering. If you see section 19 of this PMLA Act, which actually looks into this entire process of money laundering, it grants the ED the power to arrest the individuals based on material in its possession, which is actually provided on a reasonable basis in order to believe that an individual has committed a punishable offence or not. That is, under PMLA Act, under section 19, the ED actually has the power in order to make an arrest of a person if it firmly believes that, and if there is a reasonable basis for arresting him, or if it actually believes that he or she has actually involved under money laundering. Also, if you see in general criminal law, the burden of proof lies with the prosecution. That is, whoever is actually prosecuting, they need to actually prove the person guilty, and that is why they say innocent until proven guilty. But however, in the ED, it is actually reverse. So here, in general criminal law, the burden of proof lies with the prosecution, which must establish the guilt of the accused beyond a reasonable doubt, upholding the principle of innocent until proven guilty. However, the burden of proof is reversed if the ED establishes a case that the property is involved in money laundering under PMLA. Now, moving forward, let us actually see few of the associated court judgments. In 2022, a 3-judge bench led by Justice A.M. Khanvilkar, they had actually upheld the PMLA and the ED's powers, including the arrest in Vijay Madanlal Chowdhury versus Union of India case. However, in the recent Kejriwal case, the court has actually highlighted that the arrest under section 19 should not be arbitrary or whimsical, okay? It should actually have valid reasons to believe that the person is guilty based on the admissible evidence that would hold in the court. And also, this ruling actually has a broader implications for the interpretation. So, because of this, we need to revisit and actually look at the interpretation of the PMLA and the protection of individual rights against any kind of arbitrary state actions.